Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
We're back at you in Gloves Off, and today I have a great guest, one that I consider my brother from another mother, and that's Sifu Keith Fanning, and he did another break today.
Yep, today. Yeah. Thank
you. Thank you for doing that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what you've done this year. Keith Fanning came in early this year, and he made a goal that he was going to break 12 world records, one a month on breaking. So we've been covering his breaks. We've been covering what he's been doing, but today he has a special break, so we can go ahead and talk about that. And you did it about a couple of hours ago, correct?
Yeah, but about 2 hours ago. So I came straight here. I had a quick little lunch on the way up, and first off, thanks for having me on again. It's great to talk with you. And the break that was set for this month was actually supposed to be at a charity barbecue 2 weeks ago, but the guys who were organizing it decided that due to insurance reasons they would pull the plug, and so it kind of left me a bit up in the air. So we decided we'd do it this weekend, and we got it done. And again, I gave a description of the break with we call it a cavity break. It was famed in the 80s in a particular movie as a dim mak break. So the idea was to hit the top block, go through the top block. We had a 20 millimeter, almost 1 inch, quarter inch high density foam mat in between, and then break the bottom block only. So it's quite a difficult break. But it was one I wanted to challenge myself. And again, like you said, I challenged myself to the 12 world records, and today was no different than any other. It was just a good challenge, and I had a lot of fun. I'm actually still smiling because it went so well. Yeah.
So we'll see it right now. We'll put on the clip for everybody to watch. But tell us, how many did you break, and what was the seconds and the time frame?
So the idea originally was to do 5 in a row. We done some practice during the week, myself and Gavin, and I found that once or twice the stations had moved and slightly offset the block. So today we put up 7. In case anything went wrong, I had extra set and it didn't interfere with the time. But once I kind of got into a flow and I felt everything working correctly, I decided to break all 7. So we managed to do it all in 19.2 seconds. So I took my time. I made sure I was well centered. I made sure the chi was flowing correctly. And we broke all 7, lucky 7 in 19.2 seconds. So very happy with that. Very happy.
That's awesome. And many people are gonna say, how do you start conditioning? What's it take to get involved? And because you see breaking boards in martial arts, you see them all the time. Depending on the martial art, some of them are required and some of them didn't exist, and all of a sudden they became required. How can somebody that wants to continue the breaking and get involved in it as a competition like you've done and gone in that route, how do you start conditioning?
Okay, so first off, the one thing I'm always going to say, you can learn anything on YouTube right now. Unfortunately, you doesn't necessarily mean that it's right, and it doesn't necessarily mean that if you go onto YouTube right now, you're going to see guys who have disfigured fingers, hands. One particular guy, it looks like his hand is dead. It's the same color as my T-shirt, But I don't know if your camera can pick that up. But I have a little skin discoloration there from a scar I picked up a few years ago. But other than that, there's no deformities and there's no lack of movement. I still can. The only thing I can't do is touch my little finger. Just the muscle here is too big. But
Sure.
otherwise, I have full dexterity. I have no arthritis. I have no anything of the sort. So that's first off. I use my Dita gel liniments, which are supplied to me by one of the guys I train with, Stephen Terence Kinsler. But so people, you can go to your martial arts school, you can go to a martial arts practitioner and figure out how to do. They've figured out they know how to do conditioning. They've learned conditioning correctly. I think the Kokushinkai karate guys really pushed the conditioning levels beyond a lot of other styles and systems out there. I know the Wing Chun, they have their wall bags, and some karates have makiwaras. So again, each one is specific to that system. My father was a phenomenal breaker, absolutely phenomenal breaker, and he taught me everything I know. And I've gone worldwide to try and find somebody who can teach me more than he did. But in the conditioning realms, you've got to remember, just because you can hit something with a hammer fist or a chop, or the weakest link is still here. So people forget, they think, okay, I can punch a makiwara. That's great, but the muscle groups here in the forearm and the wrist have to be significant enough to stop the movement. And it's something I've been working on with a couple of pro fighters here in the last couple of months. It's getting the wrist to stop moving. So again, my conditioning regime starts from finger press-ups, knuckle press-ups, to different movements for the forearms, so that the chain is strong from tip to the end, So
Absolutely. And you see that. You see that a lot. You see the condition that you said. You see it usually in the Western, not the Western. You see them usually in the Eastern arts and compared to the Western arts. But if you look back, Jack Dempsey used to hit sand inside the horse urine, and so densing up his skin and to densing up his hands. All those elements, I think, existed one time in the Western arts and have slightly just dissipated and been removed. They weren't passed on, which is kind of sad. But they at one time they existed, because you had a lot of different types of conditioning for especially boxers and people in Savant that are no longer passed on now. But conditioning is one thing that we need to understand in any martial art. Whatever you're doing, you better start conditioning your body, because unfortunately, if you get into an altercation in the street and you punch somebody, well, you have a skull's the cranium's the densest part, the hardest bones, So when you hit the skull, a lot of fingers crack and go bye-bye. A lot of people do not know that. Once you have a broken hand, well, you're out of the fight. So, and I'm not saying people should go out there and and fight or anything like that, but you have to prepare yourself for that. You have to see what they're preparing themselves for. And like you said, the Kyoko Kinskai people, they're very, very adamant about their conditioning. Some of the old karate, Wataru, Shorin-ryu, Ichin-ryu, Shotokan, they did condition. They still condition on the makiwara. I mean, in the West, we have our heavy bag. They're done for a purpose, but people have forgotten to pass on that line. You might still see it in some of the boxing clubs, probably in England. You probably might still see some of it in the Eastern and probably in Mexico, in the boxing gyms, the big boxing stables. You're going to see a different type of preparation for the conditioning of the hand that you don't see in other places.
But it's funny. You even look back at the some of the Korean military videos, where the soldiers who are highly trained martial artists in the Korean arts, but they break tiles, they break boards. There's a lot of emphasis in the Korean army. The videos I've seen anyway, and
Right.
it goes back to the element. And again, when you look at the system that I come from, it was originally a bodyguard system, so it was the last line of defense for the emperor. So the exponents had to be able to, every single blow they could deliver had to be able to break something, whether it be board, concrete, whatever. But I still practice the same regime. So if you take, for instance, your standard we go into a standard movement of a guy throws a haymaker. So you're going to block, you're going to move on. When you block with a conditioned hand, it changes what happens to the recipient.
Absolutely.
But it also means that I don't have to go into a realm of 20, 30 strikes, or, I know that's an exaggeration, but I don't have to, because when I deliver a strike, I deliver a blow that's a good enough blow to break something. So, and what I've been doing a lot with some of the video series I've been doing of the application of breaking in everyday self-defense is where Gavin, my training partner, has been getting a lot of rough work lately. But he throws a punch or a kick or whatever, and I block his punch and kick, and I move into the strike that I want to finish the technique. So we do it once slowly, then we do it once fast, and then I do it once where I actually miss his head, but I break a brick, a tile, a block, whatever behind him, to show that this is the application of what I'm actually doing. And it's trying to get across to people that not all breaks you see are fake.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't have to build my chi to do the break. I can do it at a moment's notice. So it is trying to show people there's a relevance for everyday work with it,
Absolutely. And you see, funny you mentioned that, when you see the old American Kempo guys, my Sifu and Mr. Parker, LeBounty, Tom Kelly, Huck, all those guys, the first generation guys, they had conditioned hands. They conditioned their hands. You see it now, and that's kind of lost. You're not conditioning your hands. Kempo means law of the fist. So their hands at that time, they look like little sledgehammers, number nines. You know what I'm saying? And when you get that, and you see that, and you see the way they're moving, then you can start seeing why the application worked.
Correct.
They had the weight behind it. They had the conditioned hand behind it. Right now, a lot of people don't have the conditioned hands, and they're going to hit somebody that way, and their hand's going to break. And
it's funny you mentioned the Kempo. Excuse me. 2 weeks ago, we lost one of Kempo grandmasters here in Ireland. He was one of the first generations.
Sure.
Like Ed Parker came here, and then obviously he left behind his legacy and his training, and the guys continued on throughout the 70s, throughout the 80s. Barney Coleman, he died 2 weeks ago, but there's videos getting shared now of Barney in the late 70s in the pubs. Everybody's sitting around the pub, they're smoking, everybody's drinking, whatever. And Barney and the guys, like there was Barney, Morris Shea, all these original Kempo guys are in the middle of this, breaking tiles, breaking stuff with their head, with their hands. And it was to show that they were real martial artists. They weren't guys who were just practicing for the sake of practicing. They were practicing for a reason, and at that time, my father was really hitting his stride as well, because he'd opened the schools. And Bruce Lee had just hit the scene, and everybody says, Bruce said famously, boards don't hit back and all that. But yet there's videos of Bruce Lee breaking boards. So he had a certain level of conditioning too. So
of course,
it does go back.
It does go back to that. So you see it. I remember taking it on the Savada, and my Professor Paturel, when you used to see his hands, they look like little gorilla hands, because he was always hitting the bag. He was always hitting something else. So the muscles start growing that way. And that's just the way it is,
Well, again, it's unfortunate, but it's true. My father used to walk into, say, a seminar or a big martial arts event, and he would shake hands with people, and he would always judge them on the strength of their hands, because he said his master used to say somebody without hard hands, conditioned hands, they look fancy, they look good, but when they deliver that blow, what was going to happen? So, like you said earlier, you punch somebody in the skull, which I don't advocate at all, but if you punch somebody in the skull, the weakest point is the two small knuckles, so they're going to move. And how many people do it? Mike Tyson did it. So many other martial artists have done it in the street when they're not wrapped and not in gloves. So I've always been a huge fan of conditioning.
It's going to happen, and people do not understand that once you hit somebody, it's going to happen. It's there. You have to know how to hit properly, how to strike properly. and people need to understand that has even been lost in karate schools. You start seeing people, instead of it being here where everything's in line, you start seeing people punch this way, what you know what I'm saying? So all of a sudden, well, it's going to happen, but you have to, and some instructors nitpick and say you have to do it correctly, teach correctly, and people leave because they say, oh no, he was telling me I wasn't doing right, and over here in this school I'm already a black belt in 9 months, so I'd rather go over here because it's a lot faster training. No, understand? So there's martial arts. What I tell folks is when they come in, they say my child's being bullied, or I need to learn this in self-defense. You have to give it at least 6 years, at least 5 years. 4 years, and there's arts that produce the person's reaction a lot better, like boxing, Thai boxing, boxing, and so on, that you're in there and with the gloves and you're moving, and it builds you a lot better, but it does not build your mentality for the fight. Understand what I'm saying? So you can still, only because you can throw a fast jab and a cross, you still don't have the experience level to be able to get out of that.
Yeah.
So that just, that's the way it is.
It's funny. One of the pro boxers I've been working with recently is a guy called Willow Hayden. He's only 20, but he said it great to me because we worked on his hand. He had a bit of an issue with his hand. We worked on his hand. I helped him. And I said to him, how's it feel? Now that the injury is moved. He said, on the pads, it's fantastic. He said, because everything's controlled. He said, when I throw the punch, my coach is catching it. His pad work is fantastic. He said, but I really want to find out what it's like in sparring. And he said, when you're sparring, now I knew this, but it was beautiful to hear a 20-year-old say it to me. So when you're sparring, people move. And you might throw off a hook, but you're going to catch him in the elbow, you're going to catch him in the shoulder, you're going to catch him in the side of the head. It's not going to be perfect like it is in the pads. And to me, it was like that moment of, wow, you're going to go a long way, kid, because you understand. He's listened. I think the kid has 300 odd fights as an amateur at 20 years of age. He's now got 4-0 as a pro.
Sure.
But because that mentality is in him, that he understands not everything is perfect.
He has experience behind it. Yeah. And that's what happens. You see, around here locally, a person goes and has 2 wins or 3 wins on an amateur, or even lost as amateur. All of a sudden he turned 18, and guess what? You're going to be fighting pro. And all of a sudden they start losing pro, and they say, oh, it's politics. It's not politics. You don't have the experience behind you. Exactly. Before you even go pro, you should have at least 100 amateur fights behind you. Mm-hmm. At least. If you don't have that.
But it's funny because I've had kids come into me, and I think I told you before, this one kid came in, he wanted to learn MMA. And I said, well, listen, come in and start kickboxing with me and see where you go from there.
Sure. So
he came in, he done 2 classes, and he never came back. And I bumped into him out in the shop one day, and I said, what happened? You never came back? He said, no, he said, you throw too many jabs. He said, excuse me, what? You throw too many jabs. I said, how many times do you think some of the biggest fighters in the world have thrown jabs? Mike Tyson, Conor McGregor, doesn't matter who you pick. They have thrown millions upon millions upon millions of jabs because they need to perfect it. It's their opening move. You can't do a throw without throwing. Yeah, but I really want to learn MMA. I said, okay, I'm not going to win here.
No, you're not. They have a set mentality for that, and it's not here for that. I look at it this way now: is if a student comes in, we've had many that come in, they want to go fight. They want to fight in the ring. Goes, I thought you were going to teach people how to fight in the ring. Yeah, I will, if you have the dedication to even make it a class, to start learning what it is. Yeah. Once I see a dedication, then I'm gonna waste my time to teach you how to fight in the ring. That's basically what it is. Before that, I did it for a long time. We had some great champions, both in Golden Gloves, and we had 27 Golden Glovers in regional, which is fine, and I was involved in boxing for 6 years, more or less, 5.5, 6 years. You want to put it that way. So we did great, for that purpose. But we had a team. It was a unit. You have to teach it that way. You had to separate it from your regular classes and have that team. You taught them at a different hour, and they even came to class, and you train in class, you learn a combination in class, You learned your condition, what have you in class, but guess what's going to happen this hour for fighting? This is the hour you're going to train just for the competition in the ring. Because it's a different mindset.
Completely.
And if people do not want to take that mindset, just like you conditioning for that, you have to condition. You have to say, you know what, this hour, these 2 hours, I'm going to condition myself for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do not have the dedication for that, it's not gonna fall down in your lap.
No, well, just to get back to the breaking for a second, the level of conditioning that I've gone to exceeds what most people are willing to do to their bodies in terms of, and again, I'm not hurting myself. Like I said to you, I'm not doing anything that's going to be detrimental to my future or my life, but I'm willing to do it 7 days a week, hail, rain, or snow. In the hottest days here, we had a really hot summer here, nothing compared to you guys, but we had a really hot summer here. And I conditioned every single day, and every single night I did my strength and conditioning stuff. I done my work. But it's that level of dedication that pushed me forward. And that when we went to demonstrations or we were doing seminars, I was always the one my father put forward. It wasn't because I was his son. It was because I was the one that conditioned the most. It was the one, like we had some fantastic breakers come through the club at the time where I was in full-time training. So, but because I could go to a level where they weren't willing to go to, they would take a day off for work, family, whatever. My kids now come with me when I'm like my 2 girls, they come with me everywhere, and I'm conditioning, I'm training, but they're joining in little ways, but they're seeing the level of commitment, and they're starting to get that too. And my 8-year-old now plays locally some cricket, some local football club, but also trains kickboxing with me, and she knows the level of commitment that she needs to put in. I don't force it on her because I don't believe that works. But if you come to me and you want to learn to do what I do, you've got to show me the dedication. And I think I said to you before, I had people come up to me on the street and say, do you remember me? I trained with you. And I was like, no. And I wasn't being bad to the person, because so many people come through your school, like, unless they reach a certain level or they've shown you a certain level of dedication, they're just somebody who came and trained for a while. They're not going to stick out, but I've stuck out in their head. So
absolutely,
that's
absolutely. So when's your next break, and what's it going to be?
Okay, so I actually had this conversation 10 minutes before this call with you, with a guy called Master Jonathan Field. He's in Coburg Taekwondo in Canada. He's messaging me pretty much every day. We talk back and forth. We've competed alongside each other. He's in the lightweights, I'm in the heavyweights, but again, another phenomenal breaker. And he did a record a couple of years back where he used straight fingers on boards, and he did 30 boards in under 20 seconds. But I can't get those boards here. So what I was thinking of doing was some tiles. So we have some tiles here that might be similar. So I'm going to go out and buy some this week and see if I can replicate his record or beat his record, but use a different material. So it won't stand as me breaking his record, but it'll be something to aim towards. So fingers straight through some tiles.
All righty. And folks, I'm going to play the video now, and I want you all to enjoy it. And we'll leave you with this. Keep pushing forward, keep shining the light, especially over there to the martial art world and to the folks in your land and in your area and across now, because guess what? The internet and Facebook touches all worldwide, and you've been a great influence to many. Thank you for doing that. Okay. And we will see you soon, and hopefully we can get this CDC issue out of the way, and for you to come here, or we go over there, we'll do something.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay. Until next time, my brother, you be safe.
Thank you very much.
broke. It's just hanging.
Yeah.